When it comes to Game of Thrones fan theories, the well runs deep. So deep, in fact, that this is like, my fifth video on it, and I'm still not running out of ideas. Just as well, really, given how long we're gonna have to wait for the next season. We all know now that R plus L equals J, and we've all got hype for like a game bowl, or thought about the Grand Northern Conspiracy, or tried to work out who the prince that was promised was, and they're just the more believable ones. But there's all manner of other tinfoil theories that people absolutely love to delve into as well, from Varys being a merman to Roose Bolton being a weird skin-stealing immortal to George R.R. Martin being the face of a government conspiracy designed to promote incest and thus weaken the human gene pool in time for the lizard invasion. What was I saying? That one is admittedly not included in this list, but whatever, we'll have some fun anyway, won't we? Because my name is Adam Cleary, and these are 6 more lesser-known Game of Thrones fan theories that might just be true. But before we begin, why not subscribe to stay notified? Ding, ding, done. Number 6. Tywin knew about the Joffrey murder plot. Tywin Lannister shagged the love of his son's life on the same day he sentenced him to death and was, by extension, the absolute man. So how the hell did a long-winded, complex plot to kill Joffrey get past him? Well, what if it didn't? What if he knew but just did nothing? After all, Joffrey was an embarrassment as king and increasingly unstable. Tywin had already likened him to both Robert and Aerys II, 2 kings he absolutely detested. The War of the 5 Kings was largely done by this point, and Joffrey's madness was only likely to become a bigger obstacle than anything positive for the realm or the Lannisters. In short, he was and would have been a f***ing nightmare. Tommen, on the other hand, was A, kinda, B, manageable, and C, next in line to the throne. If Tywin had got wind of the plot, what reason would he have had to get in its way? Number 5. Robin Arryn is Littlefinger's son. Although designed to be an irritant, Robert Arryn's sickly, petulant, and often pathetic nature becomes unbearable, and crucially, not anything like the descriptions we have of his father Jon. We're given some reasons for them raising a feeble child, but Jon was, in his youth, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and broad-shouldered. Lysa, meanwhile, also had blue eyes and the auburn hair that is typical of the Tullys. Robin, by contrast, is small and dark-haired with pale eyes, and hey, you'll never guess who else was described like that as a child? Peter Baelish. We know that long before they married, Peter and Lysa had a sexual relationship. She lost her virginity to him and later actually became pregnant to him. Before, of course, her father forced her to abort the child by drinking moon tea, from which she nearly died. After being married off to Jon, it took numerous attempts before she successfully gave birth to a child, but at this point, they were living in King's Landing. I mean, for crying out loud, they literally had an affair and killed Jon later on, so who's to say it didn't just start a little sooner? Number 4. The Faceless Men Conspiracy. The Grand Maester conspiracy, my all-time top favourite conspiracy, suggests that the Maesters have been working for generations to extinguish magic and thus dragons. But the notion of destroying dragons also plays out in the Faceless Men conspiracy. Okay, so the Faceless Men are said to have originated in the mines of Valyria before the Doom, where they mercy-killed slaves who could no longer stand the horrid conditions they were forced to work in before moving on to their masters and eventually becoming the Death Cult. Now, if they want to give the gift of death to everyone, which is both logical and heavily implied, then the best way to do that is with the White Walkers, effectively making them a death cult allied with beings who can control the dead. It sort of makes sense. Tied into this is the reading that they want to remove dragons from the world because of their role in the slavery of Valyria. Number 3. Scepter Lamore is a Shara Dane. Scepter Lamore appears in A Dance with Dragons as part of young Griff's storyline and serves as his spiritual tutor. She has a habit of bathing naked in the river because lol George R.R. Martin, due to which Tyrion notices stretch marks on her stomach, indicating that at some point she's given birth. Thus, ergo, cannot always have been a scepter. When she disguises herself as a merchant's daughter, he believes there's more to her than meets the eye. The most enticing theory here is that she is a Shara Dane, the sister of Arthur Dane. Legend has it that Ashera was a great beauty of Westeros who captured the hearts of men like Sir Barristan Selmy and, supposedly, Ned Stark. It's said the pair fell in love at the tourney at Harrenhal, where Selmy also believes someone dishonoured her. After defeating Arthur at the Tower of Joy, Ned took his sword Dawn back to the Dane seat of Starfall. After this, Ashara committed suicide by jumping from one of the towers, but crucially, the body was never recovered. Number 2. The Descendants of Duncan the Tall. While Duncan the Tall lived decades before the events of Game of Thrones, it seems he has still left his mark, with George R.R. Martin himself saying there are 4 descendants of his in the series. The most popular theory was that of Brienne of Tarth, as well as obviously her height and double obviously her proficiency with a sword. She mentions seeing his shield in the armories of Tarth. Another popular idea is that Hodor was a descendant of Old Nan and Duncan. We know Dunk did visit Winterfell at one point, and Bran even had a vision of a young Old Nan, or I suppose just Nan, as she would have been at that point, kissing a tall man. The other theories are less based in textual evidence, but more on who fits the bill size-wise. Sandor and Gregor Clegane are top of most people's list, and in fairness, the Hound does eventually uphold the virtues of what a true knight like Duncan should be. Gregor, less so. Number 1. Bran Stark is Bran the Builder. Bran's meddling with time travel has led to a number of theories, including the idea that he was the voice inside the Mad King's head. But one that really came to prominence is that this Bran Stark was also the first Bran Stark, aka Bran the Builder. There's no concrete proof of whether the Builder actually existed, nor is there a real explanation for how he lived long enough to build the wall and go on to found Winterfell and House Stark. But if it was all Bran from the future, or Bran from the present, I guess, well, that would be an answer of sorts. There's a beautiful sense of poetry to this idea. Bran might have built the wall, and then by passing back through it, might have broken the magic that stopped the White Walkers burning it down. Oops!
Well, would you look at that? You got all the way to the end of the video, and your mother said you'd amount to nothing. What are the chances? While you're here, why not watch one of our other many, possibly quite good channels, or watch another video which will be largely in the same vein as the quality content you've just endured. Go on then.